Welcome everyone to the Proven Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Church. I'm a music producer from Northeast Ohio. I began this weekly interview series to give you different perspectives from artists, producers, engineers, and other individuals in the music industry. In each episode, we touch on not only what has helped the person succeed, but we also touch on what has shaped them into the person that they are today. I hope you're able to gain some real proven knowledge from the show, and that it helps elevate you on your own journey to success as well. Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 268 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today I welcomed an artist, producer, overall incredible musician from Chicago, Illinois. His name is Neak. I got privy to his work. He did a verse on Fillmore Green's song called Die Immortal with Rashid Hadi. That was probably the first time I saw his name. Two other fellow Chicago artists who he is great friends with. And then I just started checking out his material. He dropped an album in June called A Film Called Black with fellow collaborator Cam B. So Neak joined me this week to discuss that project, but also just talk about, his long journey in music, being involved with it from a very early age, and also just the amount of work he's put out over the last, 15 to 20 years. He's stayed very consistent. I would definitely recommend everyone go check out his Bandcamp. He has a lot of work, even a lot of things that aren't on streaming currently. But he talked about the process of creating A Film Called Black with Cam B, spending over 3 years creating the project and doing a full rollout for it. He talked about the importance of being able to collab with people like Rashid Hadi, Rita J, what those people have meant to him in his career, and really just what he's looking to do moving forward, being an educator, helping out the next generation to maneuver through the music industry while also being able to still produce for other artists and put out his own music as well. Like I said, I've really just got tapped in with his work over the last couple months, but I am a big fan now of what Neak is doing, and I'm excited to, welcome him back anytime. And I thank him very much once again for stopping by this week and taking the time out to join this platform. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. And like I said, after the episode, go check out all his music. I really love his stuff. So without further ado, let's get into this one. Yeah, for sure. And I've been very excited for it. And I guess we usually just start off by having the guest give some background, kind of a general synopsis of, who you are, what you do, things of that nature.
Okay. Well, I'm a hip-hop artist, producer in Chicago. I go by the name of Neak. And I got a pretty extensive history here in music. I've been officially, I would say, on the scene since around 08, 09. So definitely well over a decade of, creative, work here in the city. I've also, took my music outside of the city. I've done tours. I've done at least 3 tours, been around the country, been in Canada, rocking shows in different cities like, Indianapolis, New York, Atlanta, Seattle, Portland, just all across the map, man. The Wisconsin area, up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, just everywhere, man. So that's kind of like my history as an artist, over that part. But then, I've been also too, just more so recently, focusing on the education aspect, being consulting, being a creative consultant, working with different creatives and just pretty much sharing the knowledge that I've known and I've accumulated, over the years, and sharing that information, really through the aspect of project management. So anytime, a creative has a creative project in mind, whether that's an album release, event curation, touring, things of that nature, I just provide, really structured, information and, infrastructure around that to help them, complete that.
Yeah.
And then, just as a child growing up, my father, he had a really, pretty extensive history in music. He was part of the Kelly Brothers with my dad and my 2 uncles. And they, toured around the States in the 50s and 60s. And, they performed with, artists like James Brown, Sam Cooke, Patti LaBelle. They were signed to Federal Records, Excello Records. So, music has just kind of been in my family, man. And I'm just, following in those steps, just keeping it going.
Absolutely, man. And that's incredible. And I know just even from looking at your Bandcamp probably a few weeks ago, I saw projects back there from 2010. I saw you had the Pete Rock tribute project. I thought that was a really good one. A lot of different projects. So yeah, like you said, you've been doing it for quite some time, and it's something that's always been involved in your life as well. I guess my first real question would be about Chicago specifically, because obviously Chicago is a very musically rich city, and especially in hip hop, a lot of great hip hop artists have come out of Chicago. So has it always been kind of your goal to stay rooted at home in Chicago and kind of get things, rolling from there, and you've kind of just been able to expand out through the city? Or did you ever think about, going somewhere else and figuring things out, and then you kind of just decided to stick with what you know in Chicago and build from there?
Yeah, I would say if this was maybe about, 2 decades ago, I probably would have been thinking about leaving. But we live in a globalized society now, and I've still been able to make a lot of connections, right here from home, with people across the map. And again, that's how I was able to tour. I was also even preparing to go overseas, going over to Europe. But, when the pandemic happened, that tour had to get put on hold. So going to be working on trying to do some of that in 2026, 2027. But I think that, it's just kind of been organic and natural. I've been able to make some really good connections outside of the city, being right here. So, I don't really see a significant reason, why leaving. And plus, I love Chicago. I love the culture here when it comes to the music. I love the hip hop here. I love, just kind of the artists here. They keep me on my toes. They keep me, focused and sharp. So a lot of people here that are really talented. A lot of my good friends of mine, this ruminating throughout the city. So maybe when I first started, but right now, I'm pretty rooted. I like Chicago, but I'm always open to like move around and travel and, and tap into different places like I've been doing, so that won't stop either.
For sure. And as far as, your friends go, and especially the local area as well, I feel like the first time I saw your name on a track was probably the Die Immortal track with Phil Moore, Green, and Rashid Hadi, which was, I think, like 5 years ago. That was probably the first time I saw your name, and then I found out that you guys had a lot of different collabs together. You had done a lot of music before. So talk about those guys, but talk about, some of the other artists in Chicago specifically that you've worked with over the years that mean a lot to you, and people that you've learned from as well. How has that been kind of coming up with all those guys together?
Yeah, well, that's all family, man. And I would say, just to taking a step back, being able to meet different people across the scene as you tend to come up. I give my original shout outs to two individuals who basically spearheaded me into the Chicago music scene. That's Mulatto Patriot and Pugs Adams. Those two guys, when I first came into the scene, they were one of the first ones. And also a soul singer, Yao, too. They ingratiated me when I first came into the scene, basically gave me the ins and outs, who to work with, who to look for, who to connect with. And that's how I ended up meeting the Prime Meridian, Rashid Hadi, early on in my career. And me and Rashid Hadi, we got a very tight-knit, close relationship. He's like a brother to me, and he's basically been like my mentor in the music game. Him and another great friend of mine, Slade, who's done a lot of production with Jamila Woods and that too. So those two individuals was like, Slade and Rashid Hadi gave me the sound, my sound, as an artist, because they produced the majority of my records. Yeah. Then I started to produce records for myself as well. I started to learn, more about the MPC, curating records in that way. So I started producing. And then eventually that's how I started finding my way, working with other artists. I started working with Rita J that way. I produced a full project for her, Fillmore Green, with the whole collective that we had with Gold Standard Collective, myself, Fillmore Green, Rashid Hadi, Taiwan Davis, Fables, Since 9-6. I ended up producing records for those guys as well. I did a full length for Since 9-6 as well. So we started just really working, tight knit together. We were all friends. We were all in the studio together anyway. So, it just made it, really organic and natural. And then I just started, working with other individuals as well and kind of producing, some stuff here and there. Most notably, my brother Cam B, who I've been friends with for a very long time. You know, he shot a lot of music videos for me, and I worked on some of his projects over the years. You know, him as a soul funk singer, you know, artist. So really, you know, when it came to like my production, that's how I was able to really start to build, you know, relationships with other artists outside of, you know, just me being featured as a rapper. You know, I was produced on the Jim Crow project that he released some years back, and then just recently now, you know, I'm just, you know, we just released an album called A Film Called Black, where, you know, I did a lot of production on there, partnered with Can B, where we had Sky Zoo, J Ivy, Add To Again, you know, individuals like that, Sam Thousand. So really built this organic Chicago homegrown sound over the years, just collaborating with friends and building from there.
Yeah, building a real sense of community. I think that's a huge thing to do.
Yes.
Involved in that. I think I saw an interview with you probably like a month ago, and you were talking about a time in the studio with Rashid where he was falling asleep when you guys were mixing stuff.
Yeah.
I love that one. That was a great story. And then obviously I know you said that Rita J was someone that was kind of on your bucket list for a long time. Like you wanted to work with her for many years.
Yes.
What is it about working with her that is so special, you think?
Well, really her musicianship, like her lyricism and her songwriting, I really gravitated to just her style. You know, she just sounded really well on a record in terms of like her cadence, her flow, her demeanor on the song, and it was really intriguing to me. And I loved the subject matter, you know, and it was just real like homegrown hip hop to me. It reminded me of the essence of hip hop. It reminded me of where it came from and just sonically how she sounded. So I was a very big fan of hers. And, you know, just again, reached out to her. We started connecting. And then, you know, just building track by track. You know, with her originally, we wasn't even supposed to do a full-length project. You know, we just started off doing one song at a time. And then we started realizing that, hey, we got a chemistry here. We got some good work here to build off on, and we ended up turning it into a full length.
Yeah. And
hopefully, you know, to get her back in the studio to work on some more stuff. You know, we've been in the talks over the past couple of months, so you definitely might see some stuff from her coming, you know, in the future.
I love the song you guys had on the Quest Bar album. That was probably the first one I heard with you guys. Was that the first record then that you guys did?
Yeah, because I produced that record for my album, and I heard her on it, and I asked her to come through the studio, and it was real organic. She absolutely came through, did the song, and that is what kind of spearheaded our relationship in terms of me producing for her and giving her, you know, her sound.
Yeah.
So that was the first song that we did. It came out great. I love that record. One of my favorites.
Yeah, for sure. And I know even with Quest Bar, you said that was kind of the beginning of you producing mostly for your own stuff, because before that I think Rashid was doing a lot of the stuff and you were working with some other people as well. But you mentioned, you know, being able to produce for other artists, how important that is, but producing for yourself, what do you think is the contrast there between working with another artist? And are there any challenges with, you know, picking the right beats for yourself and deciding like, hey, I want to give this to someone else, or I'm just going to keep this for me? Like, is there ever any struggle in that, or you just kind of, you know, what's going to be put for, you know, each project you're working on?
I say for me, it's actually easier to produce for me because I know what I like.
Yeah.
I know what I like to hear. I know the sonics that, you know, that I feel like I sound good over. So it's really easy for me to produce, you know, records for me. Sometimes, and that's when I'm in a flow. Sometimes if I have a beat block or I'm like mentally trying to work through some challenges, you know, it gets really challenging that way, because you're like, okay, does this sound like something I did before? Is it a little bit more organic towards a future sound, or like what's going on, what direction I want to take it? But once I find that direction, I'm gone. You know, I'm smooth sailing. Producing for other people, I would say is not it's challenging if you are not building an organic relationship, at least for me. Because typically a lot of my producing history, I produce full lengths for people, or the majority of the records. So I spend a lot of time just getting to know them, getting to know what they like, getting into their influences, kind of where they are in life, what they're talking about, where they're at emotionally. And then that kind of gives me the foundation for where I want to take the production. Because that's when I'm in full service mode. I'm trying to make sure that I create the right sonics, the right sound for them to bring out the best lyrics. It's way less of me, more of them, what they're on, where their mindset is. And I just build from there. But once we find that chemistry and I know where they're at and I know what's driving them emotionally, then it starts to pick up and become easier over time.
Yeah, I think it's almost, you got to kind of pivot. You almost got to wear a different hat when you're doing that sort of project as well. Yeah, for sure. But it's very impressive either way. And I guess another kind of sidebar question would be, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone as a producer and as an artist, is one more challenging than the other? Or do you find that you can do both as long as you're in kind of the right mindset creatively? Like, it's not too hard for you to kind of push the boundaries and push your limits of what you're capable of creatively.
Yeah, it's just more of a mindset. I think it just depends on where you're at mentally. Sometimes I get in this mode where everything is just fluid. Everything is just coming out. There's no issues at all. And then I get into these moments where I'm like, man, I feel like I've done that before. Or, man, this don't sound as good as I would like it to be. Like, sometimes I get really objective and I'm like, no, this is not it, But what I try to do in those moments is I just still work through it, right? Because eventually what I've learned is if I keep going, eventually the sound will begin to shape itself. The lyrics will start to shape itself, the flow, the cadence, the energy. The record will start to shape itself. It's just when I have those moments now, what I've learned from, just throughout the history of making music and in the past, is you just got to keep going. Because if you don't go, then you're not going to discover the sound that you need for that moment. So it's really a discovery process. Even when I'm having beat blocks or the lyrics aren't coming out like I want them to, it's cool because it's really an excavation process for me to get to where I need to be eventually where I'm trying to go.
Hey there, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute out to let you know about a couple different ways that you can support the podcast. One of the ways is by clicking that support the podcast button within your streaming platform. That is if you want to be a monthly supporter of the show. You can contribute either 99 cents, $5, or $10 a month. So that's the first way, and that's the more traditional way that we've had now for the last couple years. The other method that we actually just recently introduced is from our good friends over at Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a virtual tip jar. We have set our limit to a minimum of $10, but you can go make one-time, one-off donations. So if you visit ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast, you'll be able to donate. And all these different forms of donation go towards getting new guests every single week, getting potential sponsors on board to do giveaways, and overall just making the show better for you guys. So if you want to do that Ko-fi link, it's ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Otherwise, again, look for that support the podcast button in your streaming platform if you'd like to be a monthly supporter. And I just want to say thank you guys for your contributions. And without further ado, let's get back into the episode. Yeah, I think it's important to be able to dig deep in those moments and really kind of find, and I almost feel like as long as you're not forcing things, better art can come that way. You know what I mean? By being able to kind of sit down and push yourself through that. So that's definitely a big thing as well. And I'd say other than working through it, let's just say if you feel like you need to step away for a bit and go do something else for a while and then come back to it, what are you doing? Are you like going on walks? Are you planning other events, or maybe just, watching TV? Like, is there anything that you do to kind of free up space in your mind to get back to creating, like during the day?
Well, I read a lot, so I spend a lot of time reading like different books and whatnot. I read a lot of books on business. I read a lot of books on strategy and stuff like that. So that kind of gets me in a different mindset outside of music when I'm having blocks. Me and my fiance, we have a lot of in-depth conversations. So we have these high-level intellectual conversations a lot. So we build in a lot, in me getting my mindset, straight in that area as well. I would also say, like, I'm spending a lot of time just really, like, it also supporting other people as well. So, like, going to other events, going to other things that can really just kind of get my inspiration going. Like, especially when a lot of my friends got stuff going on, I'm really excited about that. So I could, like, really support them and really find that fuel as well. So I do a lot of that too.
Yeah. Definitely important things to be able to do for yourself, to kind of be able to recharge and come back in that way. You mentioned earlier the new album is called A Film Called Black with Cam B. And I saw you guys just did the album listening session recently, which looked like a really cool event. So how did that go, and how did that all come together as well?
That was, man, that, just to take a step back, I'll talk about how the album came together, and then we can talk about the listening session and whatnot. So again, just referencing earlier, me and Cam B, we have a long-standing relationship. I've been knowing him since 2008, 2007-ish. I was introduced to him to a good friend of ours. He passed away some years ago. His name is Johnny Bravado. We did a show together. He was in a band called Entitled, and I was a budding artist from the scene. And we connected at the show. He was like, I like what you're doing. I was like, I love what you're doing. But he was kind of like putting music on the back burner a little bit, and he was getting into his shooting music videos and doing films. So he shot a lot of music videos for me during that particular time. And then after that, he started to come back into music. And then around that time, I was noticing him building back up his brand as an artist. And I was still releasing music, throughout that period as well. And then I would eventually come in and he would ask me, like, certain feedback on songs, or, add some, co-production on the record here and there. And then more recently, during the I would say, I say more recently, but the pandemic was actually 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It felt like it was just yesterday.
It's crazy to think about that, isn't it? That it was that long ago already.
Right.
Yeah.
So during that time, that's when we really started to connect, because, we're in the house. It's nothing to do, man. Everything was shut down. Mm-hmm. So we was all making music, at that time. And I told him, I said, hey, look, come over, let's just make some records, man, and see where they go. So we started making records, and we started noticing, like, we got an actual sound. Like, I like the records that me and him are making together, because he's a producer as well. So it kind of freed me up with not just making, foundational records, but him also adding his touch and flavor to the records too. So we were like co-producing. And then I was like, hey, look, man, let's just make this an album. Let's just, make an album and see where it goes. And then we ended up making an album. We didn't have any idea for when it was going to come out, how we're going to brand it or anything like that. And I was like, well, it sounds like we have our own sound. This is different from me. This is different from you. Let's create like a collective name or whatnot. But we were like, we didn't know what names we wanted to have. And he came back like a week later, and he said, what do you think about calling the album, Film Called Black? Because it kind of, touched, it was really like music that was centered around our stories, our experiences, our history as a people, kind of that thing. And I was like, but that sounds like not just an album name, that sounds like a group name too. That actually should be our collective group name, and we can self-title the album, Film Called Black. And he sat on it. He was like, I like that idea, and we ran with it. And then the album had already been done back in like 2022, 2023-ish. And then we just built organically, kind of just introducing people to our sound. We had a residency out here in Chicago with the University of Chicago. We were doing film screenings. We were doing private studio sessions. We were doing like performances with the songs, kind of like doing some A/B testing with the songs, seeing what people like, what they didn't like. And then, we partnered with Rashid Hadi. He executive produced, mixed and mastered the album, and kind of gave it the sound. And then we cultivated that over like a year's time. And then we were touring with the film that we shot called King Speech, one of the featured songs on the album. And that kind of gave the album some momentum and some legs leading into its release. And then we just put, we before we put it out, we did a live listening session, gave people a full experience of the album through an experimental film. It went very well. It translated well. We felt like, and then we put the album out, and it did really well from the beginning. I think it's already well over 250,000 streams right now, and it's just doing well. And it's doing really good. And again, we had some really nice features on it. Add to Skyzoo, Jay Ivy, Grammy Award winner. Olive Blue. Elisa Latrice. Some homegrown people, but also some well notable people outside of the city. And all of our musician friends, people that, extended their love on the album through their, instruments, Josh Griffith on bass, Aaron Day on guitar, Sam Thousand on horn, Chris Pacquiao on percussion, Benny Ramos on keys, and the list goes on and on, man. Kenneth Leffridge on flute and sax. So it just turned into like this whole thing, man. And, we just been going with it, and it's been doing well. We're still traveling with it and moving it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I gotta say, for sure, I think it's great that you guys put so much time into it and actually gave it. I think you were able to kind of flesh that idea into something that was able to impact a lot of people in a lot of different ways too, even outside of just the people that are on the album. I think that's incredible because now it makes sense when you say that the album was done a couple years ago. Because just from looking at your guys' pages, and you did a page specifically for the album and the group itself, like I would encourage anyone listening to go check out the page because you guys did such a great rollout for this project, like months back. And even the singles, like you guys did a lot of singles before the project even came out to, kind of spread awareness about what was going on and what was going to be coming. So I think it goes to show that, people shouldn't be afraid to kind of take their time with the ideas they have too, because I think you guys are kind of reaping the benefits of being able to sit with that idea and say, let's do this in the way that we envision, and let's kind of go all out for it and get people involved in it, and make something really special. So congrats on that, man, because I think it's something to be very proud of. For sure. Yeah, thank you. And I got to say, Salutations is probably the one I'm running back the most right now. I probably ran back that song like 50 times in the last couple weeks.
That's a lot of people's favorite, which is one of my favorite records too. It just feels good when you listen to it. It just has a really good soul feel.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing is, I had never heard of Cam B before this project, so I'm gonna have to go check out his other work now and kind of get privy to what he's doing too. But yeah, man, congrats on it. I think it's incredible. And as well as I know you guys are working on other music already. Like you already posted, videos of you guys in the studio working on all kinds of things. Is there anything you can reveal about what you guys have going next? Or are you kind of just in the early stages and just making stuff?
Oh, yeah. We're in the very early stages, man. I think right now, one thing that I can say is that we've started to formulate like our own production duo type deal. So, we're starting to produce records together for other people, whereas that, before he was producing records with people and I was producing records with people, but we realized that a film called Black is its own sound. So, and some people want that sound. So we come together and we're starting to produce for other artists, in that way. And that's kind of, we've been just testing the waters and seeing, where we can go with that. But as far as the music and things of that nature, we've been back working on music immediately, together and separate. So, but there's nothing as far as like on the table that's scheduled to be released. But, we definitely want to be prepared and keep riding on this momentum that we've been able to build.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely a lot of great possibilities with that as well that can come from that. So definitely exciting stuff. And we're down to the last few questions here. And these are ones I ask on every single episode, more life-related questions. The first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago, give yourself any piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
Go back 10 years ago, any advice? I would say, and I know this is kind of twofold because I'll say what I would say, but then I'm going to caveat it with this. I would tell people I would tell myself to really get a well-rounded understanding of who you are as an artist, what you like, what you don't like, and kind of grow in that, right? So you don't find yourself trying to search and fit the molds, and I think people want to hear this, and maybe they want to hear that, where you can just be more genuine, authentic for who you are as an artist. I think where I grew over time is, you know, in my songwriting, that was like one of the areas where I struggled with the most. Early on, I struggled as a songwriter in terms of really honing in and making a cohesive record from beginning to end, because I was trying to fit all of these different styles and sounds and, you know, incorporate lyrics in a certain way where I think another artist, like pulling inspiration from another artist, but trying to do it exactly like them. Like, it was kind of like that thing. But then the reason why I say I caveat is because if I don't do that, then I don't learn how to be a songwriter today, right? I don't learn how to really hone my skills and really grow as a songwriter to this moment. I just think that, you know, life happens the way it's supposed to if you just keep showing up for it. And everything happens in time, man. You know, I feel like even now, like, I feel like I'm the best that I've been throughout the history of my career. You know, I feel like I'm just getting started. But I'm very grateful for what I didn't know, because it gave me the ability to learn it, you know, and being open to being a student and not saying, okay, what I'm doing here is great and I'm just going to, you know, everything is good. It's like, no, I can look back and be like, oh my God, that was not good, you know, to me, you know. But I think just staying open, being a student, learning, being humble about it, and just trying to grow as you continue to keep, keep growing your career path.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in being able to find your own voice too. And when you finally find it, it's like the sky is kind of the limit at that point, because you're really, you know, tapped in with yourself as a person. And then you can kind of you can be genuinely you and just kind of present yourself to the world the way that you want to. But I think you're right. I think it takes a lot of, you know, work to find that for everyone. And
people pick up on that. You know, it's very early on. Like, people can pick up on when you're not being yourself. They can't say it and articulate it, you know, fully, but our human instincts, we like, this is not genuine at all. You're trying to find yourself here and there, and even that's okay if it's a part of the journey. You know, it's because it's the human experience. You know, who I am today is not who I'm going to be 5 years from now. Hopefully, you know, hopefully I'm continuing to grow and learn. So, just, you know, again, you and who you are and yourself is enough. Yeah. And to keep owning that, it just makes the music that much better.
Yeah. And that's a great segue, because the next question is kind of flipping that and saying 10 years from now, where do you think you envision yourself musically and just in your life overall?
Musically, 10 years from now, man, this is where I would like to take it. I would like to become more of a teaching artist. You know, I'm really passionate about the music business and teaching people the skills they need to create a thriving business around their, you know, creative practice. So I really want to hone into that and really, you know, show people that you can make a living from your art. You can build a business around, you know, your creativity and have it sustain you and be happy doing it, you know. That's one area. I think another area too is I definitely want to produce a whole lot more. I want to produce a lot more records for artists and more projects, probably more in a record label sense. Again, because it's just more than just the music in and of itself that gets people to the next level. It's the infrastructure around the music, it's the themes, it's, you know, creating a platform for the music to thrive, right? Instead of just having the music in and of itself done, and then there's no strategy and no strategic development around how we can maximize and get this record out into the world for people to embrace it. So really those two areas. And then as far as an artist, I'm never going to stop doing that. I'm going to be an artist myself. I'm always going to have music out, and I want to continue to do that. But I want to serve in those two areas, you know, helping teaching more about the nuances and growing in the music business, and producing more records, more full-length records for artists in a record label sense, imprint.
Yeah, Well, that's incredible, man. That's incredible. And I know you're going to get to a lot of those goals. I think all of those goals, honestly. So early congrats on all of it, man, for sure.
I'm on it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners before we get out of here today?
Final words, wisdom, I would say, I would say two things. Take your time and love life. Meaning that you don't have to be anywhere. You are your own person. You don't have to deal with the pressure of feeling like you need to be somewhere and to execute certain things. Take your time, grow, evolve as a person, and be okay with that wherever you're at. There's no competition anywhere. It's you versus you. It's you growing to the best version of you. So take your time and then love life, man. We're not guaranteed to be here. I'm not guaranteed to be on this call. My life could have ended yesterday, but I'm here. God gave me another day to be here. So it's a blessing. It's an honor to be here on this interview with you, Anthony, and really have this conversation. And anytime there's a blessing to be able to live another day and share your art, man, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all we can ask for at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So, well, Neak, I gotta say, man, thank you again for taking the time out and stopping by. And I'm excited for all the things you got coming up. And again, congrats on the new project with Cam. And, thanks again for stopping by. Anytime you want to come back, let me know.
Absolutely, man. And thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you got coming up next. And keep me posted on anything, any way I can help serve and, spread the word and really, keep this going, man. Just let me know. Anyway, any help you need from me, let me know.
Thanks everyone for listening today. That was episode 268. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send any funds. And feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. So we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.